Hi everyone, in this part of the FPS tutorial series, we will be implementing firing and reloading, as well as add ammo pickups and do a bit of other improvements for our weapon manager. But before we proceed ahead, I will like to fix a little mistake I did in the previous part. So in the previous part, I arranged weapon classes in the following order. To me it seemed like an okay choice at first, but soon I realized that it won't be good enough once our project size increases. So I'm going to do a few changes here. I'm going to set up our classes in the following way instead. Here we will have a base class named weapon, and then two classes inheriting from it, unarmed and armed. Finally, the weapons we created before, that is, the pistol and the rifle, would inherit from the armed class, whereas the unarmed script will simply be the unarmed class itself. So then we will have to do a few changes in our project. First of all, let's create a new folder and name it armed, and move both pistol and rifle folders into it. Now I will duplicate weapon.gd and name the new one to arm.gd. Then place it into the armed folder. Now let's open both weapon and arm.gd files in the script editor. Now arm.gd is supposed to inherit from weapon.gd. But before doing that, I will going to remove a lot of stuff in weapon.gd. It's just to make it act like an abstract class, as later it will make our code much more manageable. Now back to arm.gd, we will inherit it from the weapon class. And now I will remove some variables from here as they are already defined in its parent class, that is the weapon class. Now let's open unarmed.gd and remove everything from it except its extend statement. We will shortly going to add some functions over here, but for now it is going to be empty. Now finally, let's open pistol and rifle scripts and change their parent class from weapon to armed. And that's all there is to it. Let's run the game to see if everything is working fine or not. Okay, it seems like there is an error, and that is because I forgot to update the location of pistol and rifle scenes which we are preloading in the weapon manager script. So let's fix that by updating it. Here we go, it is working just as before. Now before implementing firing and reloading, let's create a particle effect for a muzzle flash, which I will also going to use for a bullet impact effect as well. Also, whenever it looks like that a weapon or any animated object is not in the right pose, then play its animation and bring it back to the default pose. Now let's add muzzle flash into the scene and place it inside the anchor node. And yes, later in this video, I will going to add weapon models to the game as well, so things won't look too boring after that. Let's do the same thing with rifle scene as well. Now let's create a basic firing and reloading animation for both of these weapons. Also, for firing animation, don't forget to set animation looping to true. Now let's create a singleton for instantiating nodes into the scene. So I will create a separate folder for it and create a script called global.gd into it. So whenever we want to instantiate or create a new node, then we have to pass the preloaded scene, that is a packed scene, as an argument. Then we instance this packed scene, meaning convert it into a node which we can use in our game. But to use it, we have to add it to a tree, otherwise we won't able to see it. That's why we need a parent node into which we can add it. So suppose if we don't pass any parent node, then we simply add a reference of the main active scene as the parent. Finally, we add the node as the child of the parent. Now the pose variable, which is short for position, is used as a global position for the newly created node. So if we don't pass any argument for pose, then the default position will be 0 in all three axes with respect to its parent. Finally, we return the instance node and exit out of the function. And that's pretty much it. We will be using this function shortly. Also, don't forget to add the script in autoload. Now back to player scene, add a Raycast inside the camera node. And you might have guessed it already, it will be used for shooting, that is, for detecting objects which collide with the ray. So now let's create a variable in weapon.gd to hold a reference to the Raycast. Then we will set that reference via weapon manager, as we did before with other variables of the weapon class. Then finally add player node, that is the owner itself, as an exception to the Raycast. Otherwise, it will detect collision with player itself, and this is something we don't want. Now let's head over to input map and add actions for firing and reloading. Now let's add some more weapon parameters. In weapon.gd, create a weapon image variable which is going to be used for displaying weapon image on HUD. Now let's head over to arm.gd and create some more parameters specific to weapons like pistol and rifle. Here ammo in mag is the current ammo present in the clip, whereas extra ammo, as the name suggests, is the extra ammo available to us. Mag size is the total size of the mag, so for that I will simply assign the value of ammo in mag variable when the game starts. Finally, damage is for the weapon damage, whereas fire rate is for how fast the weapon fires. And impact effect is the particle effect we created, which we use when a bullet collides with an object. Additionally, reload speed will simply control the speed of the reload animation. Finally, let's head over to update ammo function and set up a basic ammo management for weapons. Here, the action parameter which we previously created will be used to define what action we want to do. So for this purpose, using a switch style control flow is much better. In GD script, we call it a match, and it works exactly like a switch statement. So starting with consume, which basically means when we fire a weapon. So here we simply decrement 1 from ammo in mag variable. Then for reload, we first find out the amount of ammo we need. Then based on that, we check whether we have enough extra ammo or not. If we do, then we simply reduce ammo needed from the extra ammo variable and set ammo in mag to full capacity. Otherwise, if we don't have enough extra ammo, then we simply add that to ammo in mag and set extra ammo to 0. Finally, if we are picking up ammo or a similar weapon, then we add that ammo to the current weapon, that is, to extra ammo variable. So now, after having done that, we will simply store these values into a dictionary, and then this will be used by the HUD to display the updated information on our screen. Also, we want to have a weapon image for all types of weapons, be it armed or unarmed. So that's why we need to return weapon image in weapon.gd's update ammo function as well. Now let's begin by implementing firing and reloading. Starting with reload, it is going to be pretty straightforward. It is basically going to work similar to equip and unequip functions. I will explain it more clearly in just a moment. Here I will define 3 functions related to firing, so it's a bit different than reload, equip and unequip functions which we created earlier. And that's because if I try to implement firing that way, then the controls won't feel much natural, because then we won't be able to fire weapons while holding the left mouse button. Now let's add fire bullet function we created as a key in the fire animation clip. So choose any place in the timeline where you think the bullet is going to be fired. Now in Weapon Manager script, I will create functions related to firing and reloading, which are going to be used by player.gd script. And finally, let's head back to player.gd and call these functions from there. And yes, just one last thing to do, and that is to define a few functions in unarmed.gd. But we won't be touching it anytime soon, so that's all for now. Now let's better understand how firing and reloading are actually happening. So let's start with reload first. So whenever we press the R key, which we assign to reload action, then we call weapon manager's reload function. So inside the reload function, we check whether we are changing weapon or not. So we can only reload if we are not changing a weapon. And if that's the case indeed, then we simply call current weapons reload function. So then let's go to the armed script and check its reload function. Here first we check whether we can reload or not, and if it's true, meaning we can reload, then we set is firing to false. Then after that we start the reload animation and set is reloading to true. But is reloading needs to be false at some point, so for that in onAnimationFinished function we simply set it to false and also call the update ammo function with reload as the argument, where update ammo simply figures out how to calculate the resulting ammo when we want to reload. And finally, we also have to set is reloading to false inside the equip function. And that's because if in middle of an ongoing reload, if we decide to change our weapon, then is reloading needs to be false for that previous weapon. Otherwise, we won't able to fire that weapon when we switch back to it. Now let's head back to the player script and understand how firing is working. So the basic idea is that when we fire a weapon in a FPS game or any kind of game where it is required to shoot, then we simply hold the left mouse button, after which the weapon would fire continuously with whatever its firing rate is. So we can either hold the left mouse button or just simply tap it, but either way we are able to fire a weapon. So for that we need to be running the firing code on each frame when we are holding the button, and this is why the implementation of firing is a little different compared to reload, equip and unequip functions. But nevertheless, we call fire function when we are holding the left mouse button and call fire stop when we release it. Now let's look at these functions carefully. So in the fire function, we check for a set of conditions before we start firing. So first we set is firing to true and then start the firing animation. Also here I am setting loop property of fire animation clip to true. And the reason we are doing it explicitly is because later we have to set it to false as well, because we don't want it to keep looping when we are no longer holding the left mouse button. Then the elif block, which calls fire stop function, is basically used if we have no ammo available, so it means we exit out of the firing state. So in the fire stop function, we simply set is firing and animation loop to false. Finally, here is the fire bullet function which we were calling in our fire animation clip. Here first of all we start the muzzle flash particle effect. Then we call update ammo with consume as the argument. After this we call force raycast update method of the raycast node which we added earlier, and this updates collision information of the ray. Finally, if ray is colliding with something, we instantiate the muzzle flash scene. And yes, make sure to set emitting to true, otherwise the particle effect won't be played. So that's how firing and reloading is going to work. So now let's head over to HUD script and update other UI fields as well, since now we are getting more information from weapon data dictionary. And yes, in the previous video I forgot to add texture rect node so that we can add images to it. So let's do that now. Now all we have to do is assign values we got from weapon data dictionary into different fields of our HUD. Just to be sure, let me check dictionary key names in the update ammo function. Now before we run the scene, let's fill in some values which we exported earlier. Now let's run the scene and see if everything is working fine or not. And that seems okay to me. Maybe the speed is a bit slow, but we can increase it. But we can also see that our rifle is slightly rotated, and that's because I didn't animated the body node of the weapon for equip and unequip animation. So let's do some minor changes and test the scene again. And this seems to be working just as we want. You can also see how the ammo is being reduced when we are firing, and it resets to appropriate value when we reload the weapon. And when all ammo is used up, we can't fire the weapon. So we have finished implementing firing and reloading. Now let's add ammo pickup to the game. So for that we have to first create a new scene and add an area node to it. Then I will do a basic setup by adding a collision shape and a mesh instance to have a basic looking ammo crate for now. Also, to make it look little less boring, let's animate it by rotating it around 360 degrees in a loop. Now save the scene and place it anywhere you feel like. Now let's create a script for it. So the ammo variable holds the amount of ammo we get by picking up this ammo crate. Then connect the body enter signal to ammo pickup script. So if the name of the body entered equals to player, then we simply add this ammo amount to the weapon. Okay, so before we proceed ahead, let's add a new function in weapon manager script. So first we check whether current weapon is null or unarmed, and if that's true, we return false. Otherwise, we call current weapons update ammo function with add as the argument, and finally return true. So back to ammo pickup script, we call add ammo function and check whether the result is true or not. And if result equals to true, that means the ammo was added to the weapon. So we simply remove this node from the tree. So let's head back to the world scene and place some ammo pickups on the ground. So here we go, when we go near an ammo pickup, the ammo is being added to the currently equipped weapon. And that's pretty much it for now. But before ending this video, let's add some weapon models to the game. By the way, it is not necessary to use same models as I am using, so you can use any models you feel like. But just make sure that you structure the nodes the way we have it in our current weapons. So after importing both weapon models, let's tweak a few properties of them. Now first of all, let's save these models as a separate scene for themselves. Also, I forgot to add the weapon images, so let's do that so we can use it in our HUD. Now let's add pistol.gd script to this node. Also, don't forget to add the muzzle flash node as well. Finally, let's set the remaining fields in the inspector. And yes, make sure to call animation events as well. Now we will do the same steps with rifle scene as well. But since it is going to be same as what we did just now, so that's why I'm going to skip ahead this part. Now back to the player scene, let's add those new weapons inside the weapons node. Adjust the weapon's position so that it fits well inside the camera view. So now back to Weapon Manager script, hardcode new weapons path in weapons dictionary, for now only. And now all we have to do is add the newly created weapon scenes to all weapons dictionary. And that's working perfectly fine. So just one last thing left to do, and that is to show weapon image in our HUD. As visible, the image by default doesn't fit well inside the display node, so to make it work, enable the expand property and set stretch mode to keep aspect covered. And now whichever image we put inside will adjust automatically. So to finish off, just add one extra line of code to set image whenever this function is called. And here we go, we have successfully implemented firing and reloading as well as added an ammo pickup. So in the next part of this series, we will be implementing the ability to drop and pick up weapons. So I hope this video helped you, and if you have any questions or feedback, then feel free to tell me in the comment section down below. So then, I will see you in the next part.